Egypt versus Morocco. Are you planning a trip to Northern Africa and now you're wondering about the main differences between Egypt and Morocco? Well, you've come to the right place. There are so many things to do in Egypt and Morocco, as they equally have dazzling tourist attractions. They are, however, quite different in many aspects. One thing you should know is that both are quite obviously located in Northern Africa. Both are predominantly Muslim, though there is quite a large Coptic minority in Egypt. The climate in both countries is very arid, and big parts of each country is a desert. But before we move on in looking at both countries in details, if you're new here, welcome! Be sure to subscribe and turn notifications so you don't miss out on any of our videos. Now let's begin with geography. It's important to note that the surface area of a country is an important measure to consider. This is because it is desirable to live in large countries with a greater space that may provide more possibilities for residents and visitors. In that light, Egypt has a surface area of 1,001,450 square kilometers, while Morocco has a surface area of 446,550 square kilometers. Thus, looking at both, Egypt has a larger surface area than Morocco. However, all this area constitutes areas covered by forest, water, areas used for agricultural purposes, and the rest of the areas inhabited by citizens of the respective countries. Forests are a big part of a country's landscape and overall ecosystem. The percentage of land covered by forest has a key role in removing pollutants and cleansing the air. And looking at Egypt, 0.1% of its surface area is covered by forest, while in Morocco, 11.5% is covered. That is, people can breathe more fresh air in Morocco than in Egypt. And on the surface occupied by agriculture, including arable land, permanent crops and permanent pasture, Egypt has 3.6%, while Morocco has 67.5%. This means that Morocco has a greater agricultural land than Egypt. In terms of sea surface area, Egypt outnumbers Morocco by 6,000 square kilometers to 250 square kilometers. Demographics. A country's population is an important factor to consider before relocating to that country or location. Because of their huge economies, they provide higher employment prospects. Big cities are major cultural centers and research hubs, and they attract companies and economic investment. Egypt has a population of 102.3 million people, while Morocco has a population of 36,003,000 people. However, this population is unevenly distributed. That is, some parts of the country have more people and some parts less. This is known as population density. Cities or countries with high population densities can be considered overpopulated, which can be a problem if the infrastructure is underdeveloped. Egypt has a population density of 99 people per square kilometer, while Morocco has a population density of 81 people per square kilometer. Usually, this population grows over time, which coins the world average population growth rate. The average population growth rate reflects the annual increase or decrease in population. Currently, the world's population is growing at a rate of approximately 1.07% per year. The higher the growth, the more dynamic society feels. Egypt has an average population growth rate of 2.38% per year, while Morocco has an average population growth rate of 0.95% per year. Thus, Egypt's population is definitely growing at a faster rate than that of Morocco. Every country, including Egypt and Morocco, has a life expectancy age. The average life expectancy at birth is the number of years a country's people is projected to live. This statistics indicates total life satisfaction. Egypt has an average life expectancy at birth of 73.2 years, while Morocco has an average life expectancy at birth of 77.3 years. This means a Moroccan will most likely live longer than an Egyptian. Furthermore, the average life expectancy at birth for Egypt's female is 74.7 years, and the average life expectancy at birth for Morocco's female is 80.5 years. While the average life expectancy at birth for Egypt's male population is 71.8 years, and that of Morocco is 74.2 years. However, the population of a country is affected by two key factors: the birth rate and the death rates of that country. The death rate, also called the crude death rate, represents the number of annual deaths per 1,000 people at mid-year. The death rate in Egypt is 4.5 per thousand, and death rate in Morocco is 4.9 per thousand. Many Egyptians live longer than the Moroccans. Looking at the birth rate, which is also known as a crude birth rate, refers to the annual number of births per thousand people. Calculated mid-year, it is one of the main factors used to determine the population growth rate. The birth rate in Egypt is 28.8 per thousand, while the birth rate in Morocco is 17.5 per thousand. The fertility rate, which is the average number of children born to each woman, also accounts for birth rate. For calculating the total fertility rate, it is assumed that all women live to the end of their childbearing years and give birth in alignment with the prevailing age-specific fertility rate in the country. Egypt has a total fertility rate of 3.41 children per woman, and Morocco has a total fertility rate of 2.09 children per woman, meaning Egyptian women are most likely to put to birth than Moroccan women. The age of the population also matters to the development of a city or nation. Cities or countries with younger populations have usually better development perspectives. Young societies are more dynamic and creative. Thus, looking at both countries, Egypt has a median age of 23.9 years, while Morocco has a median age of 29.7 years. Generally, a lower median age is considered better because a younger population is healthier. However, countries with an extremely low median age are often facing socioeconomic problems, especially poverty. Egypt has an average female median age of 24.3 years, while Morocco has an average female median age of 30.3 years. In contrast, the average male median age in Egypt is 23.6 years, and the average male median age in Morocco is 29 years. Economy. The economy of Egypt used to be a highly centralized economy focused on import substitution under President Gamal Abdel Nasser from 1954 to 1970. During the rule of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi from 2014 to present, the economy follows Egypt's 2030 vision. The policy is aimed at diversifying Egypt's economy. The country's economy became the second largest in Africa after Nigeria regarding nominal GDP, the 6th largest in the Middle East, and 36th in worldwide ranking as of 2021. While the economy of Morocco, on the other hand, is considered a relatively liberal economy governed by the law of supply and demand. Since 1993, Morocco has followed a policy of privatization of certain economic sectors, which used to be in the hands of the government. Morocco has become a major player in African economic affairs and is the 5th largest African economy by GDP. The World Economic Forum placed Morocco as the first most competitive economy in North Africa in its African Competitiveness Report 2014 to 2015. Now let's go a bit deeper into the components of the economy, starting with the GDP. The GDP reflects the value and productivity of an economy. It measures the market value of all the final goods and services produced annually. To reflect the differences in the cost of living and inflation rates, we show the GDP at purchasing power parity. Comparing both countries, we realize that the GDP of Egypt is $1,391 billion, while that of Morocco is $332.36 billion, meaning Egypt has a higher GDP than Morocco. And in terms of standard value-added tax, Egypt has 14%, while that of Morocco is 20%. Now onto the public debts of both countries. Also known as government debt or national debt, public debt refers to the sum of all government borrowings owed to lenders within the country. The public debt of Egypt is 103% of its GDP, while that of Morocco is 65.1% of its GDP. The GDP per capita is calculated by dividing the total GDP by the number of people living in the country. A higher GDP per capita indicates a superior standard of living. First, looking at both countries, Egypt has a higher GDP per capita of $14,028, while Morocco follows with a GDP per capita of $9,339. And on the real GDP growth rate, which represents the year-over-year GDP growth, calculated by taking into account the price fluctuations caused by inflation. The real growth GDP of Egypt is 4.2%, while the real growth GDP of Morocco is 4.1%. And another factor affecting the economy is inflation. The inflation rate represents the annual price increase for goods and services, indicating a decrease in the purchasing power of the country's currency. Egypt has an inflation rate of 23.5%, while that of Morocco is 0.8%. And looking at unemployment rate, a low unemployment rate indicates better career opportunities and economic growth. Egypt has a higher unemployment rate of 12.2% compared to Morocco, that has an unemployment rate of 10.2%, making Morocco a better country than Egypt in terms of employment. The number of young people between the ages of 15 and 24 who are unemployed during a specific year also determines how fast or how slow the economy of a country grows. The youth unemployment rate is calculated as a percent of the total youth labor force. Egypt has a youth unemployment rate of 29.6%, while Morocco has a youth unemployment rate of 22.2%. The total labor force of a country represents the number of people working or willing to work. Egypt has a total labor force of 29.95 million people, while that of Morocco is 12 million people, meaning more people are willing to work in Egypt than in Morocco. Now let's round up with the economy of both countries by looking at its military and security expenditures. The total amount of public expenditure on military and security services, such as military forces, police, and public security in Egypt is around 3% of GDP, while that of Morocco is 3.2% of the country's GDP. This means that Morocco spends more on its military and security than Egypt. Infrastructure. The infrastructure or physical and economic foundation of a nation is what keeps a country operating smoothly. Infrastructure such as roads, bridges, waste management, and telecommunications equipment are just a few types of infrastructure that people use daily. Now, onto road, the total length of Egypt's paved and unpaved roads stands at 65,050 kilometers, while that of Morocco is 57,300 kilometers. Egypt has a railway network of about 5,085 kilometers, higher than that of Morocco, which is 2,067 kilometers. In case of air travel, the existence and number of airports indicate how well a country's cities are connected to various international locations, as well as its worldwide accessibility. In this light, the total number of airports in Egypt is 88, which is higher compared to the total number of airports in Morocco, which is 55. That is, both local and international airports. Let's conclude this point with the percentage of internet users in both countries. The percentage of Morocco's population using the internet is 58.3% higher than that of Egypt, which is 44.3%. Quality of life. Beginning with obesity. An obese adult has a body mass index of equal to or greater than 30. Obesity is a public health problem and increases the risk of chronic diseases. The percentage of adults considered obese in Egypt is 32%, and the percentage of adults considered obese in Morocco is 26.1%. Also, the percentage of Egypt's population living below the poverty line, as reported by official statistics, is 27.8%, while that of Morocco is 15%. Again, the percentage of Egypt's population with access to improved drinking water sources, such as piped water or protected wells, is 99.4%, while that of Morocco is 85.4%. Another important factor considered is the number of physician generalist and specialist medical doctors per 1,000 people. According to the World Health Organization, there should be more than 2.3 health workers per 1,000 people in order to cover the primary healthcare needs. First, looking at both countries, Egypt has about 0.79 physicians per 1,000, while Morocco has 0.73 physicians per 1,000. On school life expectancy, which represents the number of years of schooling that children are expected to complete, and which is inclusive of primary to tertiary education. Both Egypt and Morocco have a school life expectancy of 13 years. Conclusion: overall, both Egypt and Morocco are both great countries with strong economies. However, according to statistics, Morocco seems to be a greater one in many aspects than Egypt. Or what do you think? Drop it in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, like, and share with your friends.